Oh, why not? We're a democracy. Have a crack. You still haven't.
Sorry.
That's two.
Shit. I'm getting too talking politics.
One more and we'll take you off the roll.
Hey legends, this opportunity to have a pub chat interview with the Prime Minister came up because I commented on his Instagram account. I didn't think he'd show up, but he did.
Cheers, Prime Minister,
Cheers.
for coming to the pub. I'm one ahead of you, but I usually am with me guests, so a little bit of catching up to do, but no pressure.
Although this is a zero alcohol beer, so...
You are on the zero, which is fine. That's becoming more socially acceptable.
It is.
In Australia. How long have you tried to stick to the 0% beer? Or...
Well, it's now,
Yeah.
almost through 3 months.
3 months, that's pretty good. I do it for a month here and there, but
Yeah, it's a good thing.
But how you going? Like, what's it like being Prime Minister?
It's pretty good. It's an incredible privilege. I mean, you do feel this extraordinary responsibility, and you get things thrown at you every day that you've got to deal with. But it's an incredible honour.
What do you like most about it?
The fact that you can make a difference to people's lives. So even at the moment, there's floods in Western Queensland. So making decisions about giving support there. Even on the way over, we were making some decisions while we travelled here to Perth. They're going to need potentially some Air Force assets to get in fodder for the cattle on some of those big stations in Western Queensland. Support for finances for people who basically are stranded, can't work at the moment. So you can make a difference each and every day over small things, what seem like small things, but they make a difference to people's lives. And then there's the bigger picture issues that you have to deal with as well.
And what made you want to become a politician? I know that's a kind of rude question, but it's not necessarily a popular career path.
It's not something that I grew up with. I grew up with just a single mum in public housing in Sydney. My mum was an invalid pensioner, and so she had a pretty hard life. She had rheumatoid arthritis, was crippled up, and so the experience of a couple of issues, health, and her experience being a single woman, invalid pensioner, not very well, found it difficult to advocate for herself.
Yeah.
And that experience politicised me, I guess.
Right.
And
I'm in there with you. My mum and dad got divorced when I was 4.
Yep.
And then my mum and stepdad when I was 13. So I'm bloody a dual broken home medalist.
Golden.
So I get it. Yeah, I would come home. Mum's on the phone to Centrelink, and you'd hear, "Oh, get fucked," and she'd hang up on the old landline. So when those services don't function well, it affects people.
Oh, absolutely. And then housing, we lived in, it was a council housing, city council in Sydney, and there was this privatisation campaign. Basically, the sort of right-wing conservatives got control of council and said, why does council have people living in public housing? I wanted to flog it off. And so it was a campaign when I was very young, at very early teens, to save what was our home. My mum was born in that place. She lived in the one house for 65 years, and we ran a campaign and basically knocked over the council, got rid of the council, got Labor re-elected to control the council, who kept it in public hands and then handed it on to the state government. And so I joined the Labor Party, then got accepted into uni, went to uni, did economics, got more and more interested in politics, but
Yeah, right. Economics is interesting. So you know about money. Are you a pretty good spender, or are you frugal, or what?
I'm pretty frugal.
You're pretty frugal. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not going around going like this all the time, right?
No, pretty frugal, and we've produced 2 budget surpluses showing that fiscal responsibility.
Yeah. Because Labor cops a lot of shit for that. Everyone's like, oh, they butchered the spending.
We're the best economic managers.
Yeah.
Highest spending and highest taxing governments have been coalition governments. We make sure that the money goes to the right places.
Well, it's a big stress for lots of people, right? Like even coming from single mother upbringing, money is on the agenda every day in the household, right?
Absolutely, it matters.
Yeah.
And we understand that when it comes to people's taxes, you want to make sure that it's spent wisely and that you don't waste it. And we've managed to do that. We didn't promise a budget surplus at the time of the last election, but we delivered two and have halved the deficit that we did hand down this week as half of what it was going to be when we inherited government.
And what do you see as strength in a world leader?
I think having the capacity to be strong about your values, to know what your values are. I think strength is also about being compassionate, and I don't think picking on people who are down is strength at all. I think you have to have a clear idea of where you want to take the country and stick to it. Things will get thrown at you. But I think that a fairer economy and society is a stronger economy and society as well. So I don't want people to be left behind, but I also want people to be able to aspire to more in life.
Is it hard to push for that because people are so riled up by emotions versus facts in this day and age as well? So how do you kind of navigate that? People get very fired up over race and gender and what I call in my industry as a bloody content creator, don't use the word influencer. I'll be like, well, there's push button topics and people build audiences based on those. So everyone gets riled up. Like, do you think there's more emotion or facts in politics, and how do you cut through with facts?
Well, I think you've got to be determined to do so. It is easy, some people have said, to appeal to fear rather than hope, and to say, your problem in life is because of people who don't look like you. And that's a recipe for division. And one of the things I think we're seeing play out in the United States is an increased polarisation and increased anger. And that's not a good thing. In a democracy, you want to bring people together and try and look for things that unite the community rather than divide it. So it is, when we spoke, your previous question about strength, it's one of the things you have to have the strength to do, is to have the moral fortitude, if you like, to not just appeal to division.
Yeah.
And to look for easy answers, but to explain things, to have the courage of your convictions, because in so many parts of the world we see the conflict within societies, but of course also between societies and countries as well, where we have so many disputes based upon religion or based upon perceptions of difference. And humanity has a lot of common elements to it, and we have much more in common than that which divides us. And we're going to try to bring the show together.
Do you think people have been radicalised more by the internet? It's my livelihood, and it's where I've found creative satisfaction. But I look at it sometimes and I'm like, geez, this has gotten pretty heated online with, and even this, stick to comedy, that's what I'm going to get in the comments section, So it's like, do you think people have been more radicalised by the internet in their beliefs, their values, their ethics, or is it neither here nor there? Like, propaganda spreads no matter what era.
I think they have. I think one of the differences is that previously there was a lot more commonality in where people got their news and information from. So they picked up the paper, which actually was a paper, and read it. They watched the same news at night, so that there was more commonality about the information that they were absorbing.
Right.
Now, it's a good thing that there's so much diversity and that there's content creators out there who are able to inform people, but it means that it's a lot more fragmented. And that, combined with the fact that people can be anonymous in their comments. There are people who say things online that would never say it to your face.
Yeah, that's always been. I'm an aging millennial, so our generation basically invented cyberbullying. So yeah, it's like you can hide behind your keyboard and say some shit, and then you see the person at school and you never say that.
Yeah,
and it's
and
a different
some
story.
of what you look at, the the platform formerly known as Twitter has got more toxic.
Yeah.
That's just the truth of it. I don't look at the comments. Like, it's just very, very disheartening, to say the least. It's a polite way. But people are just over the top. Some of the things that they will say and accuse you of is pretty unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I think somehow we've got to have more of a discussion as a society about the role of new technology, the way that human beings interact with it, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, because it is having real world consequences on mental health and on a range of issues.
Why do you think a ban on social media for under 16s is important?
Well, that's one of the issues. I've spoken to parents who have lost their children to the bullying and to what's gone on, and you can't get that information, get the figures on mental health consequences for young people and not have a response. Now, these things aren't simple. Technology can be a fantastic form of communication. It can be empowering. It can be democratic.
Yeah.
Because you're a content creator. You don't need to have a big factory that's producing a newspaper.
There's no middleman. Like my original
You're
studies
direct.
were in traditional filmmaking, and
Yeah.
you got to wait for someone to approve the funding, and then you go out and you make your thing, and you take a year and whatnot. But now it's like, I can have the idea. I can comment on your Instagram account,
And away you
then
go.
all of a sudden we're bloody meeting, and it's like, wait, I thought that was a scam. No, it's
Yeah.
not. So it is what I love about it, where I'm like, all right, you can reach your audience directly, and there's no gatekeepers, right?
Yeah, that's
But
a good
with
thing.
that, the responsibility is
That's right.
being left to each content creator.
That's right. And the problem of a very young person is that they're not in a position of empowerment. They're not in a position to be able to control these issues. And young people are developing into young adults, and it can have a really devastating impact. So this is world leading. We're spending the year from the time the legislation was passed to consult, make sure we get it all right. We want to make sure that young people can still communicate in a way that doesn't expose them to some of the dangers, to call it for what it is, of some of the online activity that's going on.
Have you watched that TV show Adolescence?
I haven't watched it.
You got to watch that. Are people recommending that to you?
They are.
Yeah, give that a watch, Prime
I've
Minister.
seen the ads for it.
Yeah, it's pretty full on, because especially young men as well, and the masculinity, the amount of like masculine life coaches online is pretty intense. So
And
is that one thing a social media ban for under 16s will kind of look to?
It's having a real impact. Like
Yeah.
young people going down rabbit holes
Right.
of
The algorithm.
ultra, masculine, so-called, the way that they would call it that, but essentially it ends up being, some of the content ends up being really misogynistic.
Yeah.
And teaching young boys that is something that will create problems, not just immediately, but down the track as well. We know that domestic violence and gender issues are really important.
Yeah, one issue always kind of segues into the next, right?
Indeed.
Yeah. Where do you find that balance between where a government's responsibility ends and personal responsibility begins? Because that could be a big one with domestic violence and a whole bunch of issues, gambling and things like that. It's like, how do you not overstep on people's freedom?
Yeah, I in general, I'm not a big government has to intervene in everything guy. I think you've got to really have a case to intervene. So in the under 16s for social media example, people at that age are in a position where they need government to play some sort of role, because parents as well. It will help parents, because parents will be able to say, no, you can't do that because it's against the rules.
Is it a case of just seeing where enough instances stack up? Like you're saying, you've met with families and whatnot, so enough instances stack up.
That's right, and the evidence is there around the world. This is something that governments are dealing with, and I think you will see more activity. But I'm not a big, state intervention into everyone's lives. Things I think, by and large, adults have to be responsible for their activity, but it shouldn't be activity that hurts someone else.
Right.
Is where it steps across the line.
You said it isn't easily done, but I can try. And if it's not the one that you need, I know a guy.
All right, moving on to bloody housing. How's that going?
Oh, well, it's a challenge.
It's fucking
it's
hard.
a challenge.
Yeah,
It sure is.
But you're doing a freeze on like foreign purchases of property that starts in a day or two, April 1st.
Yeah.
And then what else can be done?
You need to build supply. So we've got 55,000 homes we're going to build social housing, public housing, including here in Perth. 28,000 of those are either under construction or planning. We've got, so that's one portion of it. Second portion is emergency housing, relating to that as well, for women and children escaping domestic violence in particular. The other areas that we're doing is build to rent, which is an incentive through the tax system essentially for the private sector to build rentals, of which a proportion have to be affordable housing as well. And then we have our Help to Buy scheme, which is about shared equity. So the government joins with you in the purchase of a home. So in simplistic terms, if a place is worth $500,000 a unit, then up to 40%, if it's new, can be owned by the government. So 200,000, you reduce the mortgage of borrowing to $300,000, which obviously reduces substantially the payback. It's a smaller deposit that you need as well, down to 5%. And so that's a way of encouraging people to get into home ownership, which is important.
Yeah.
It's based upon a system that was developed here in Western Australia. It's been operating for 40 or 50 years and has been pretty successful.
Is immigration as much of a cause for the housing crisis as people reckon, or nah?
Nah, look, of course, immigration is one element, but the truth is that immigration decreased by 31% in the last year compared with what it was a year ago. And inevitably, when COVID ended and the borders opened, more people came in.
Yeah.
Because Australians who were stranded overseas for a start got to come home. Students who weren't able to come here got to come here. Tourists weren't able to come, came here, and skilled workers.
Oh, and my wife's bloody parent visa finally went through.
And
That took
them as
8
well.
bloody years. Yeah,
Well, that
yeah. All of
matters.
their kids were living here. That parent visa was held up for fucking ages. But no, that went through, so that was good.
Well,
so I'm cool
You're
with
sweet
it.
with it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's helpful. The grandkids want to see them. So
Yeah,
that's a
right.
good thing.
So, yeah, the numbers are much lower than what was anticipated in 2019. Like much lower. The key is we haven't built enough homes.
Right.
And that's what we're getting into now.
And bloody people that migrate do the jobs that like none of us Caucasian wankers who have been here for 200 plus years want to do. Right? So, get the Sudanese bloke to work Christmas Day, or get them to work the public holiday.
Go in an aged care facility and you'll see people from Nepal and people from Asia in particular who are doing hard work. And
so the skilled migrant visas are important, and they're going to bring people that work in construction as well.
Absolutely,
Right.
it is. And one of the contradictions in all of this is I've got employers saying to me, we really need skilled people here in WA, in the West. They need engineers and they need people to work in the resources sector as well as in construction. And so migration has always played a role in this country, with the exception of First Nations people. We're all migrants or descendants of migrants.
Is tampering with negative gearing political suicide?
Look, it doesn't provide a solution. It doesn't fix supply.
Right.
And it could indeed dampen some investment as well. So we're not proposing to do anything with that.
I'm just like a zeitgeist guy. I'm kind of like, oh, well, there's a vibe. And even when I was in my 20s, 15 plus years ago, and it was like, oh, my friend's dad owns these 6 properties at the end of the cul-de-sac, or, you know, they own 11 properties. And I'm like, crikey, why do you need that many, right? And I think there was a radio thing a while ago where it was one bloke saying, oh, yeah, I've got 283 properties. And it was like, do you do you need that? So is there a point where it's become exploited too much that it has factored into being an issue as well? Even psychologically with young people, it's like, oh, well, people have been too greedy with that. They've exploited it, because when you own enough property in Australia, you claim the personal tax deduction, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, don't pay personal tax, build an investment property.
I tell you what will make a devastating difference is the other mob, my opponents, plan to take super out of money out of superannuation up to $50,000 to pay for housing. That was done in New Zealand. All that happens is that everyone's costs go up,
right?
Because everyone's got 50k more, so the price rises. Doesn't do anything to help supply at all. And it's a bit like government grants that have gone into housing. There's been various things, first homeowner grants and
there's a bunch during COVID as well.
Cash incentives have not helped.
Do the builders just then jack their price up? They're like, give us a piece of the pie now, you're getting more.
Everyone has extra dough to bid, so it just means that the place that was going to go for $600,000, $700,000 just goes for $50,000 more. And in New Zealand, it really has had a negative impact. So the key is that there's no shortcuts here. The key is more supply.
Was it something that genuinely snuck up on the government? It's like, crap, we're in a housing crisis.
Oh, yeah, this is a long-term problem. The former government didn't even have a housing minister for half the time they were in office. Right. Didn't have any. Didn't build a single additional unit of public housing. It has been a long-term issue that we've had to deal with, and included in that is the labour supply issues as well.
What about more shelters for homeless people?
Well, we need to do it. You can do it. I mean, that's the thing. State governments largely are responsible for that, but we have provided that additional funding for emergency accommodation. That is important as well.
Righto. And healthcare, gap payments, what are we doing? Like every time I go see a doctor or something now, the gap payment's getting bigger, Elbow.
We're going to fix it.
Okay.
Tripling the bulk billing incentive. We did that for people who are concession card holders. So for people who are unemployed or pensioners, people on payments. And that found that 90% of people then, of that group, 11 million Australians got bulk billed, so for free. And now we're extending that to 27 million Australians, to everyone, and we estimate that that will lead to 90% of people being bulk billed.
Righto.
Made an enormous difference. And then we've got these things called urgent care clinics.
They're pretty good, yeah. We used that a couple of times when the kid like smashed his face, and we were like, oh, let's go to emergency care. Because you need to take that pressure off ramping times and at the hospitals.
All you need is your Medicare card.
Yeah.
It's been
but they've started, the urgent care clinic near us is still like $200 now.
No, that's not right.
I'll give you their names.
No, that can't be right, because That must be a privately.
I think it is. Yeah.
No, we've got 87 urgent care clinics where all you need is your Medicare card.
Because healthcare is a big
Simple
thing
as
where
that.
Australians get to be arrogant, like to our American mates and everything.
Absolutely.
We're like, oh, bloody free healthcare is ridgy-dig. Like, it ain't like we get that shit for free. Whereas the last couple of years, it's like, I can't be that arrogant with me American mates because I'm paying $100, $200 as a gap payment. Is it just that, like, because I was told when I got an X-ray on me guts, they were like, here's what it is. It's like the government is still working off Medicare prices from 2012. So they're not reimbursing the medical practitioners enough for what it costs now.
What
is
they
that
did,
it?
to name drop here, Peter Dutton.
Oh, he's doing it.
Froze.
He's doing it. 40 minutes in and now he's talking about his ex. He's like,
Froze.
don't get toxic.
The Medicare payments.
Okay.
He froze it for 6 years.
Righto.
He wanted to introduce a co-payment, a tax basically every time people went to the doctor. That wasn't successful, so he froze all the Medicare rebate, the payment that doctors get. So then doctors started to jack up their price. So what we've done is by tripling the bulk billing incentive, it's catch up.
Right.
Right, so that doctors will be able to bulk bill, and people can see a doctor for free 90% of the time. Medicare urgent care clinics, we promised 50, we've got 87 of them. We're going to build another 50. There's one at Midland, there's one at Rockingham, one in Perth. I think there's 8 currently in WA, but more to come.
Right. But essentially my radiologist was not spreading fake news. It's like the rebate is too low for
Yeah.
All right, that's
Absolutely.
good. All right.
But we're going to fix it.
Okay. All right. How long will that take, you reckon?
It's happening now.
Okay.
For concession card holders, like 90% of the time, that's what the figures have got up to.
Right.
So we're doing all of that, and if you need medicine, we've cut the cost of that to $25. So that's back to 2004 prices.
Is a big part of your prime ministerialship, I don't know if that's the right word, but is a big part of you being prime minister
That'll
again?
do.
Yeah, that'll do. Is it a big thing of needing to see some of these come to fruition? These big topics, housing and healthcare. So like, you're starting to have a crack, but we need time.
You need time. And I said this before 2022, you can't overturn 10 years of neglect, whether it's those issues, health and education, housing, or whether it's on an issue like climate change. Like, you can't make a decision, righto, we're going to move to renewables backed with firming capacity, and that's done overnight. You need to have the investment, build the infrastructure, make sure it's in place, and that's how you're successful. Like housing, we got held up the legislation in the Senate for ages. Now that 28,000, 58,000 are either in construction or in planning. So the DAs before the council or the state government. So it's ready to go, but you can't make a decision and then have a house to move in the next week.
No. I do get that. I mean, I'm a vibes guy, so I'm just like, that's a vibe that's out there for you. It's like, can you do more and can you do it now?
Yeah,
it's almost
exactly.
an impatience, right?
No,
but it's a justifiable
and it's
impatience.
understandable completely. Like some people go, oh, well, you've got on climate change, you've got a 43% target to reduce emissions by 2030. Why isn't it 60 or 70 or 80? Because you can't do that. You've got to make sure that the lights turn on when you flick the switch, otherwise people will get shits. and they'll say, well, bugger this climate change stuff, you've got to bring people with you on that journey of change, if you like. And
I believe there's truth in that because if the lights didn't turn on, plus I'm hangry, it's like I'd crack the shit.
That's right.
I'd be like, society's collapsing. So it's a transition, and I think there is quite a large amount of people these days that do understand that. I myself, like one of my favourite comedians was George Carlin from the US, and he used to say, is the planet's not fucked, the people are fucked. So in my early 20s, I really kind of subscribed to that. I was like, the planet's fine, people are the fucked up thing, kind of arguing all the time. But then I thought, that's just given me an excuse to not think about an impact that human activity has on
It's
the
real.
climate. Right. So it's like, it's just, yeah, it is another thing of, are we doing enough? And 2050 is the net zero emissions target, right? So is that enough, or am I going to be bloody char-grilled and barbecued by that time, Albo?
No, well, that's, yeah, if we could do it before, that'd be great. But that's a realistic target to change. You got to change the whole way the economy works. You got to make sure that the transition occurs in a way that is sensible. Not everyone can go out there and get an EV, for example, tomorrow. And if you say to people, righto, you can't drive your car now, well, what are people going to do? They're going to go, no way. So you need to take people with you on that transition. Some of EVs, I mean, you know, we're in an election campaign now. A couple of elections ago, it was like, the EVs, won't tow your boat, you can't use a ute, you can't do all that complete bullshit. And now no one's saying that.
Prime Minister said bullshit.
No one.
I corrupted you minute by minute, Albo.
No one's saying that now.
Yeah.
Because they know that there's all these amazing EV buses and heavy vehicles and utes and all of this is coming online. And that will happen over a period of time.
Yeah, it does. I get that. It's pragmatic to say that it takes time.
But you've got to get the drivers in of the change. What drives the change through the economy is markets, is making sure that, so for example, on climate change, we've got on the big emitters, they have to reduce their emissions every year. So that drives through the change and makes a difference, but it doesn't happen overnight.
Oh, thank you, Chris. He noticed I was empty.
Look at that.
Top up for
You want a little top up?
Why not?
There you go.
Why not?
All right. Cheers to the pub.
Cheers to the pub.
Cheers
absolutely.
to the pub. All right. Well, going on to bloody.
You
war.
broke a rule there.
What did
by the
I
way.
break? What did I break?
You said cheers to the pub,
Yeah.
and then you put your beer down. You've got to have a sip. It's in the
Oh,
rules.
I didn't sip after the cheers.
It's in the rules.
I fucked it up. The country's going to be like, vote Aussie Man out. They're going to be like, cancel. Get his YouTube
lucky you're
channels
not on the
gone.
ballot paper.
Yeah, do you want to know my policies?
Oh, why not? We're a democracy. Have a crack. You still haven't.
Sorry.
That's two.
Shit. I'm getting too talking politics.
One more and we'll take you off the roll.
So Aussie Man's policies, if I was Prime Minister, number one, I would look to like make sure that when people merge lanes in traffic, that you let them in. I'd legislate that. Because
You'd
like,
just say that. What would the penalty be if you didn't?
$100. Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of fair.
Okay.
Because half the time I'm indicating and I'm like, they're not letting me in. They see me and they're not letting me in. So I'd run on that. And also 2-day work week instead of
2-day work week.
Direct opposite, 2-day work week, 5 days off.
I reckon that might be popular, but I'm not sure what it would do for productivity.
What about the economy? Would that survive?
It would struggle.
Yeah, right. How many days a week does everyone have to work?
It would struggle.
Yeah, well, what can you do?
I reckon
4?
heaps of people would be happy with 5. But one of the things we've done,
Have 5. or 2.
right to disconnect.
Oh, that's
So
pretty
that
good.
People can't get punished by their employer if they flick their phone off.
Yeah, but I
They don't-
needed to message Dom on a Sunday to film.
They don't have to be accountable. He can't be punished if he doesn't answer your phone.
Yeah, all
If
right.
you're ringing him on a Friday night, you've got an idea.
But we needed him. Like, we couldn't film on a Sunday without him. Anyway, no, it's my policies though, Albo. It's my
Yeah.
policies. So,
Well, it's just-
2-day.
I was just putting in place our alternative, which is
Yeah.
right to disconnect.
But 2-day work week would be
What-
popular. They would smash.
It would be.
Yeah.
What's your position on working from home?
Working from home, I dig it. I like being in my tracky dacks and just
Yeah, it can work.
signing into my email.
It's another thing the other mob want to get rid of.
Yeah, no.
So they want you to not be able to disconnect, but they don't want you to work from home. So they don't mind you being at home and working as long as you're not being paid.
Yeah, righto. You know,
That's the way I see it.
I'm the bloody work from home king. Like pre-COVID, I was ahead of the times. I only got down to
A visionary.
I was a visionary, mate. I went down to my office because the kid turned a year old and he could start to walk into my home office. And if I'm sitting there going, "Welcome to fucking fight day," it's not good for the child. So, like you're saying, social media under 16, I'm like, I'll go down the road because I'm in a dodgy, corrupt industry. So I'll separate my home and workspace, and then that's how I was
That's
ahead
how
of the
you get
times.
through.
Yeah, I was ahead. I love working from home.
What's your third policy?
I do have 3. Cheap KO.
Cheap KO.
Yeah, because Foxtel Group is fucked. So like every month it's like, oh, now to watch the footy it's $55. I'm like, fuck off. So cheap KO, no dickhead drivers on the road.
Yep.
And 2-day work week. You sir just
There
lost.
you go. I've heard it first. I'm in trouble.
Ah, shit, no, let's not. No.
Mate, 3, don't run in Grainlow.
It's not about me, thankfully. I'll stick to comedy. That's
Indeed.
what I do. Yeah.
I was feeling self-assured, I don't know why. I took a chance and put in my order on the slide.
Why is it not easier? Why is it more straightforward to have conviction with the Ukraine-Russia conflict than the Israel-Palestine conflict?
It's not. The Ukraine-Russia conflict was very clear because Russia invaded a democratic sovereign nation, Ukraine, and committed attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure, and it's about the international rule of law. The Middle East, the current escalation of the conflict began with people, Hamas, invading, people in Israel, murdering and engaging in some pretty horrific behaviour across the border out of Gaza. And
you're talking about the music festival, October 7th.
Yeah, the Nova Music Festival. These were young people who were more likely than not to be pretty sympathetic to Palestinian justice issues, and they were people enjoying a music festival, and they were slaughtered. They weren't military personnel, they were slaughtered by what was a terrorist action. Now, we were quite rightly, I think, unequivocally opposed to that, but we've also been critical of the extraordinary loss of life of innocent people in Gaza, as well as every innocent life matters. It doesn't matter whether they're Israeli or Palestinian. This is a conflict that has gone on for a long period of time. The United Nations in 1947 decided to create 2 states, not one, Israel and a Palestinian state in Gaza and the West Bank. Our position has been principled, which is we continue to support a 2-state solution where both Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace and security. And
you get where people are coming from, where they think the response is not proportionate in terms of Israel hammered them.
This isn't a football game where it's West Coast versus Freo and you go along and cheer for one side. All loss of innocent life is horrific. The taking of hostages by Hamas is horrific. The loss of life of innocent women and children and others is horrific in Gaza. That actually is, from my government's perspective, the principal position.
Is it hard though? People want you to pick a side, but is that just an impossible scenario?
Well, it doesn't provide a solution.
Right.
And when you have Israel has a powerful defence force and military, If there's that conflict going on, then more Palestinians are going to lose their lives than Israelis. Palestinians have an interest, as do Israelis, in peaceful resolution, in a ceasefire, which we've consistently called for and voted for in the UN, for the release of hostages, and the progression of a solution there. We've provided significant aid into Gaza, including through the UN, through UNRWA, that organisation. And we need to bring people together. We need to oppose anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. We need to...
Is that another case of where government can only do so much and people's personal opinions do come into it, and it's up to them with what they think?
Yeah, and the level of hatred that we've seen is awful and is devastating for people. I mean, no kid who happens to be going to a Jewish school should be frightened of wearing their school uniform on a bus or public transport, just as no woman should be attacked for wearing a hijab in the street. Now, both of those things have happened. It's awful. And one of the things that I did recently, without a big fanfare, was there's an organisation called Rosanna that are a group of Jewish Australians and Palestinian Australians and Arabic Australians who bring people together, basically have raised aid for projects that bring Palestinians to be able to go to Israeli hospitals and get support. And we had a bus load of Jewish and Palestinian Australians came to the lodge, the Prime Minister's residence in Canberra. And it was a really good afternoon of just people engaging in that one-on-one basis as a community and bringing people together as Australians.
Was that where you felt you saw a strength of Australia's diversity?
Absolutely. Look, one of the things about this country is that I think we can be a microcosm for the world that shows that people of Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, doesn't matter, can live side by side in harmony and be enriched by the diversity. It's fantastic that you can do things as Prime Minister. I went to a Hindu event in Western Sydney with 15,000 of my closest friends just a couple of weeks ago. You can go to a whole range of cultural experiences we can have in this country without leaving.
Usually as you get older, you get less friends. I feel like I've got like 3 or something these days. That's 15,000.
But it can work. But we have to cherish that. We cannot succumb to people being angry with each other just because of who they are. So I oppose the idea that you boycott a business because it's owned by a Jewish person. I just think that is, we know where that ends.
Yeah.
You know, the Star of David above shops in Germany in the 1930s.
Yeah.
We know where that ends. And the targeting of people, regardless of their faith, is, in my view, completely unacceptable.
Is that what you feel is perhaps the most important part of being a world leader? You got to represent a lot of people, or be a government for all people. When it feels like governments are trying to appeal to this market segment or this market segment.
That's exactly right, and that can be hard. The truth is that people on all sides of the Middle East debate have not been happy with everything that my government has done. That's okay. People have a right to express their views. But what we won't do is say that any of the activity that discriminates or targets any group of Australians is acceptable, because it's not.
What do you like to do outside of being a Prime Minister?
Love music.
Good.
And don't get to see as many bands as I used to. It's a bit more complex now.
Do you need the federal police when you want to go to a music gig?
Absolutely. Wherever I go, I'm never alone these days. So that can be an experience.
Yeah.
But I still insist on going. And
What about like David when was into gardening? Have you hit your gardening phase yet?
no, I'm not a gardener.
No, me either. Yeah.
No.
I'm saving it though for when I'm older, maybe. But
Maybe.
you're like, what are you? You're like 75.
Oh, thanks for that.
Pissed you off there.
Yeah, you did. I'll just get all this deleted now.
Yeah.
No, well, I love music. I love going to the footy when I can as
Hawk
well.
supporter.
Hawk supporter.
Brisbane Lions, man. Usually a good game though.
It will be a cracker.
Yeah, it'll be a
This
cracker.
year,
I mean, we
grand
poached.
final this year. Early prediction here.
Yeah, top spot ladder, number
fight
2.
for the flag.
3 rounds in, let's get excited.
So them and South Sydney Rugby League Football Club.
yeah,
I was on
rugby
the
guy.
board of them for a long time.
Nice.
Trying to get Perth a team.
Yeah.
Over here in the West.
Yeah, we like sport. Yeah.
Find
You
it.
travelled a lot in your younger years.
I
yeah?
did. I love travel.
I read that on your Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
It's
Yeah.
comprehensive.
That's what young Australians do. They travel around. So I spent 6 months backpacking around Europe and Africa. Got my Ural pass.
Yeah, nice. Was that
You know.
Kentucky?
I did do a Kentucky
Did do
tour.
Kentucky,
I did
yeah.
do a Kentucky
Of
tour.
course you did.
I remember it vaguely.
Ah, shit.
It was good fun. I did that at the beginning,
Yeah.
which was quite good. So it gave me a chance to see some things, and I was by myself.
Yeah, nice.
So made some friends on that tour who I'm still
You
mates
remember
with.
them?
You do, and I went via Africa. So I went in. I was determined to go. I went in. And I was determined to fly Qantas because it was safe and it was Australian. So I had a month in Africa in Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe
Yeah, nice.
beforehand. Did whitewater rafting down the Zambezi. Big
Nice.
Falls was awesome.
Oh, that's good shit. That's a good pub chat. Look, a well-travelled Prime Minister should not be underrated. So thanks so much, Elbo, for joining me. And yeah, well, cheers. And I'll
Cheers.
drink.
You got to do
All
it.
right, fucking. I did it. Thank you so much for your time. and
Excellent.
all the best in the thing that's happening. Election. Yeah.
May 3.
Yeah, may, or close to being able to say May the 4th be with you, by the way.
Oh,
You were one day
yeah,
off
it was
that.
a Sunday.
You were one. Oh, righto. Yeah.
That would have been good.
Someone, you would have thought about it.
Yeah.
Oh, good shit.
The young people mightn't have got the joke though.
Oh, Star Wars is getting old. Yeah, that's it. My 6-year-old loves it though. He's taken to it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's good. It's easy to explain. It's like that's a guy with a big puppet head, and you show him the photo of Chewbacca, whereas AI and CGI don't know what the difference
And the
is.
first 3 movies were the best.
They were the best. All right, good shit. Thank you, Elbo.
Thanks, mate.
Go.
Chris, what did you think of my KO policy? Hold Foxtel Group
I
accountable.
think it was very impressive. What the people want.
Cheap KO.
Cheap KO, cheap sport, cheap way of living, and cheap way of sitting down on your couch and watching good footy.
So I have a problem with your policy about merging. Not that I don't disagree with it. However, this is a state where people pay $110 for 30 grams of tobacco. They don't give a fuck about $100 fines for merging.
Another missed call coming your way, so step aside.